Adventures in Collecting is about toys, but it might not be for your children, especially if you don't like words like f*** or sh** or a**hole.
Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Erik.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls,
along with our journeys as collectors. Hello, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting. Dave, we are here.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Love it. Love the energy.
I had to get it in for y'all.
So, if you didn't listen to our last episode, this is the first episode of year 2 for us. Go back and listen to that anniversary episode. We had a lot of fun with all the cool special guests that we had to call in. So, thank you everybody for that.
Yes, but listen to this one first, and then listen to that one.
Yeah, you're already here, so you might as well.
Yeah, you're here.
So, as always, when we have a guest, we're not going to bury the lead. So since 2008, Dave, the Loyal Subjects has been delivering articulated vinyl action figures covering anything from wrestling to xenomorphs and pretty much seemingly everything in between. So joining us this week on the pod is Jonathan Cathey, CEO and founder of the Loyal Subjects, to talk about their new unique line that they are just launching, called BST AXN. That's BST AXN. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. We're so excited to have you. Dave and I are both completely jazzed for this new line.
Definitely one of my favorite booth stops at Toy Fair last year.
Yeah, for sure.
Or this year? I don't even know what year it is anymore.
2020, this past year.
Yeah.
Back in February, which seems like an eon ago.
It's weird. It kind of feels like yesterday, and as you're saying, eons. It's been a trip. This year's been a trip for sure.
Yes.
But with that said, still one of my favorite booths that I visited.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see how many different licenses you guys have. But we'll get into that as we get into our conversation here. So Jonathan, before we get into the Loyal Subjects and all of the cool shit that you're working on, we like to ask our guests first and foremost, what are you collecting? So what's filling your shelves these days? What are you collecting?
What I'm collecting is mostly emails from everybody right now. No, honestly, I'm more focused on building stuff, but I will be filling our shelves or my shelves with probably these Kiss figures that we're making. Those are pretty cool. Digging the Lord of the Rings. I like our stuff, man. I know it sounds like bias, essentially saying, you're the mom saying that their kid's the most greatest thing on earth. I'm kind of pulling that right now, but it's genuine, man. I really do love everything we make. So, I like that stuff in and around me. And I got a lot of it because we got a, 4,000 square foot office with giant showroom. So we got a lot of that stuff hanging out.
Yeah, we both. So it's no surprise to people who've listened to the show before, but Dave and I are huge Kiss fans. Like,
yes.
huge Kiss fans.
Nice, man.
My daughter, who will be 5 by the time this episode airs, I took her to her first concert when she was just turning 4, and it was Kiss at Madison Square Garden. That was
the day before my birthday last year.
Yeah, that was my first concert that Dave brought me to when I was younger. So,
they were my first concert too when they for their reunion tour.
Oh, that's rad! Right on, man.
So Kiss is a big part of our lives. So we're very excited to see Gene Simmons in that first wave of these figures.
I kid you not. So one of my best friends when I was in my 20s, I kind of came from the music scene here in LA, played drums in a lot of bands and, sort of slugged it out in all the clubs from, Roxy, Whiskey, Viper Room, Troubadour, basically regular rock and roll club rats at all these places in my early 20s. But my best buddy at the time, his band, I I don't know if maybe they played a couple shows with him or something. I don't know what it was, but he he got some like, backstage passes, the whole thing to Kiss when they first got back together and they were playing like Anaheim or something. It was like, Angel Stadium, something like that. And funny enough, he was like, "Yeah, we got this limo, we're cruising down there. It's all access." I think it was like Halloween or something. And they're like, "Hey, do you want to go?" And I think Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray was with them. Like it was kind of, it was definitely a 90s thing, right? So I shined it. I didn't go. But apparently it was like, with all these guys, rock dudes at the time, they're like, yeah, yeah, we totally hung out with them and it was cool. And I shined it. For some reason, I didn't want to go.
Oh man.
So there you go.
So-
To be jaded in your 20s, being around Hollywood, it's like, it's so funny.
So funny side story about that. I think that was when I think they aired that because it was Halloween. Like I
Uh-huh.
think it was on TV or something like that. So
Oh,
that year for like high school for our like Halloween basically dance and any party I went to, I went dressed up as Gene.
that is cool, man. And that was like 96, right? I mean, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was like whenever
90s.
Psycho Circus I think was
That's
the
it.
Halloween show.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That was it. That was the tour. So, um, there you go. I could have hung out with those guys. Obviously, I've seen Gene several times at Comic Con. I think he once got kind of fresh with one of my girlfriends at Comic Con, like a long time ago. But it was cool. I mean, I'm stoked to be doing it, and obviously, we're big Kiss fans because pop culture, comic books, rock and roll, kind of all colliding. That's Kiss in a nutshell, right?
Totally. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
their history, they are very much so entwined in the DNA of all of those things, which actually leads us to our next question. So,
Yeah.
you have a background in music, and you're very deeply ingrained in pop culture. How did you flip all of that into going into the toy industry?
Yeah, no, it's a trip. I'm definitely not a toy industry insider. I'm a bit different than some of the companies that sort of pop up or have, really done really well, like Jazzwares and, Wicked Cool or some of these other guys who I think, well, Jazzwares, I don't think they were from the toy industry, but I believe they were lawyers uh, that had started a toy company. I think Wicked Cool is from the toy industry. I think they're from Jax. And you see a lot of that in this industry. And I'm only saying not as is more of a contrast, that I was truly an outsider, I knew nothing about any of this. And I just had a creative streak where I could paint, draw, write characters, write stories, play music. Anything that's color shaped, sounds is like a first language to me. And as I was kind of pulling away from drums, and obviously it's hard making a buck as a drummer. Um, even if you're a big drummer, I know guys that play in big bands that squeak by essentially. So it's a tough gig, and I thought creating things actually when I first started wasn't licensing. I was creating things. I was just making up characters, and I was stupid enough to make them in China and sell them to Urban Outfitters and Tower Records and things like that back in the day. But I thought it would be a good palette, just a good medium to share my creativity with and tell story through. And that was kind of, I kind of figured it out on my own. Flew to China and met a manufacturer. I mean, this is like 2000. This is a long time ago, right? So when I first started this, not the little subjects, but first started in this industry. And then I found it enjoyable, as far as, sharing my creative palette and, how I saw play and toy and all these really kind of cool things, what I thought would make good experiences. And voila, 20 years later, I'm here. I started the Loyal Subjects 11 years ago, and I think it's served us pretty well. I think people connect to our creative ideas. They're certainly genuine, you know, and we like to tell the story in a very genuine way, and that's close to indigenous to the IP that we're essentially um, been granted rights to sort of be guardians of and champion. And I think that has been satisfying for me, to be honest with you.
Now you just mentioned IPs. I mean, we've seen WWE, we've seen Ghost, we've seen Fox Animation, we've seen so many different IPs come from the loyal subjects. How do you go about selecting those?
It's everybody's got a different process. Well, a lot of the guys in the industry are very data driven, so it's all about analytics. They're looking at, okay, what's top three game, what's top three kids, what's top three preschool, what's top three girls, what's top three pop culture. I'm most of the fight in the industry is for that. It's like you got the Big Ten kind of whacking each other, trying to carve out those big pig outs for hopefully a year or two, and then if they get a home run, they get 5-10 year stretch on something that drives millions and millions of dollars business. So our approach is a little bit different. It's probably extremely unintuitive for the rest of the industry. Again, like I said, I'm sort of an outsider, so I approach the industry a little bit different. But for us, it's what do we like, really? Like, what can we get behind? What can we dedicate, a certain amount of time and effort, resources, and capital to that we will actually enjoy and enjoy telling the story that we think the character is rich and there's a history there, and they would make good toys. I mean, essentially, it's that. It's like, what are characters that make good toys? What are characters that people relate to and that you could tell a story through and have great designs, and it's not so superficial that there's a sort of a canon, a Bible behind them. They sort of exist in a world, and when people that are fans of it come and interact with those characters, that they feel connected to those characters, they feel connected to the stories. So that's kind of it. It's with anything, it's like a book you pick up. Part of it is you're connected to that story, and you start investing in those characters. So, or people that you like to talk to, or the friends that you make. I mean, for me, it's very similar. What we're going to make is, you know, what's going to be a good experience in that point in time, and what will be enjoyable, and what we can really put our hearts and souls behind.
Now, do you find that when it comes to making these deals and selecting these IPs to to partner with, do you find that your passion for maybe some more of the niche or the like you said, less conventional brands or IPs, does that make those conversations easier to have, like as a selling point to the stakeholders?
I don't think so. With anything in business, I mean, licensing a large part, it's different parts, I guess. One part's transactional. It's like how much money we're going to make. So maybe the licensors approach, they have a bottom line, they have a target, they need to, have X amount of partners. Uh, for these 2 years, they're going to make, the consumer products group is going to make X. So there's that approach, just like real sort of like brass tacks, dollars and cents business stuff. And then there is a guy like me that it comes in, will has to approach it with like, hey, we have some serious business for you, and we think it's significant, or we think we could bring value because we could bring either an audience that isn't cued into you right now, or we can sort of put our spin, the little subject spin on the property, and bring in hip collectors, or so we're kind of maybe an angel to some of these licensors, and some of them are decent business slug, and but I do kind of approach things with like the emotions on the sleeve, which is fairly atypical in this industry. Like most of it's fairly transactional. So I don't know. Maybe I do, and maybe it is a breath of fresh air for some of these guys, because I am certainly very unorthodox. And if you're, comparing CEOs across the board of, who these guys that are at Walmart, and you look at, me and the rest of the gang, and, it's like that Sesame Street thing. It's like one doesn't look like the other for sure. So, hey, I'm a surfer skater from punker from Laguna Beach, California, and that will always be part of my being. Again, I wasn't a businessman. I didn't go to business school. I went to art school. So I'm an artist that ended up owning a business. You know, instead of a business person that could build a business and then bring creatives in to help create things. I was already the creative, and then I had to learn the business part.
So you mentioned briefly, that special loyal subjects kind of spin and treatment. If there was one franchise that you could have, like if you were given sky's the limit, there's one franchise that you can work with, who would it be?
I don't know. I sometimes, and maybe this is sort of narcissistic, but the, a lot of times I want to tell our own stories. I mean, we're writers and creators and artists ourselves. So there's part of me that's like, screw it. So there needs to be a news story out there sometimes. It's like, we don't have to always be sort of codependent on these stories that have been told for decades. Maybe there's a new story to be told. Maybe that story comes from us. Maybe that character development comes from us. So I actually think we have as much to offer as some of the historic IP that has definitely tugged the heartstrings and wowed the imaginations and minds for generations. I think we can contribute to that a bit, but as far as any of it, I loved Spider-Man as a kid. And I didn't really come from comic books. Like, I was kind of reading more like James and the Giant Peach, not Marvel. You know what I mean? So I was, my mother, she was working she was a director at a museum, and so a lot of it I was coming from like a fine art angle and bringing it into pop culture. So my influences are a little bit different sometimes, but I loved the Spider-Man TV show when I was a kid. Not necessarily the cartoon. I liked the cartoon too. I thought that was cool, like in the 80s or late 70s. But I like that early 80s TV show. I thought that was awesome, man. You know? I like the Incredible Hulk. My dad used to call him the Green Weenie. He wouldn't even call him Incredible Hulk. He was just the Green Weenie. That's what he would call him. So I thought that was cool, the Lou Ferrigno stuff. I actually was more hip to the superheroes through television, not through the comic books. Yeah, I watched the live action stuff, Linda Carter and Wonder Woman, that sort of Charlie's Angels sort of like transformation sound effect. Um, that's where I kind of learned about superheroes, and then obviously Christopher Reeve and Superman. That was kind of my first exposure to Superman was Christopher Reeves. I knew more about Star Wars, because I'd seen those movies when I was pretty young.
Well, I think going back to the idea of kind of telling a news story, I think that's super interesting because it's been a long time since there has been one of those, like, you think back to the 80s, whether it's My Little Pony or He-Man or GI Joe or any of those characters that kind of like lit the toy world on fire. It's been a long time since there has been a new one of those, because everything is like just somebody else taking over wrestling or somebody else producing Marvel figures or Star Wars figures, or GI Joes are back again. So I mean, that's an interesting take. I would love to see companies do more kind of like original characters with a narrative.
I think there's room there. It's like you kind of get into a writer's headset and a character development. It's hard because it's like nobody wants to take a risk, right? So it's like how do you get retailers on board with like here's my new guy, Sandblast Man. All right, let's go. We're gonna sandblast some fools. You know, um, it's the safe bets work, working with the trusted suppliers works. I mean, some of it you just got to shake these guys up a little bit. I mean, like, hey, there's more to offer. It's, we can't just patronize customers all the time with the same deadbolt, being screwed into the coffin. It's like there definitely is room for things that are new, you know, and I think heroes will change a little bit. Like, let's say we're walking, we're entering a sort of new phase of technology, or changes in the world, changes in the environment. I think there's room for new heroes and new stories and new sort of archetypes that aren't over sexualized or over masculine. I think there's a lot of room for new stuff. um, I would definitely. I was talking to my team the other day about it. I was just saying, yeah, we really got to start making up more of our own stuff.
Now it looks like there's that kind of narrative going into the best action line, as far as kind of getting all of these different, I guess, groups or different IP into that 5-inch world. How did that best action line come to be?
Well, it's just a continuation of Action Vinyl. So Action Vinyl is just the 3-inch stylized version that we have. And what that was, and probably, we actually expanded those universes a little bit more. So it's like we had a He-Man offering. We had a bunch of He-Man characters, or Power Rangers. There's a bunch of Power Ranger characters. So we're thinking about, well, what if we limit that and bring in the action figures, and then build something powerful that people who tell story through an action figure, where it makes sense that you have Naruto jamming with Gene Simmons. What does that world look like? And so we wanted to make sort of a democratic world with like these walls broken down, these rules broken down, and make it fun for toy collecting. Essentially the ultimate total action figure collection, because we're touching so many bases. We have so many different. There's so much variety, and there's so many different characters to choose from. And as you go, as you were a kid and you're in the backyard, kind of role playing through these action figures, we kind of want to get people back into that, using their imaginations and breaking down stereotypes and rules and borders on worlds. And we kind of were doing that with action vinyls, and thought that would be cool to introduce action figures. So again, it wasn't so stale. It's not like typical stuff. Oh, you're going to get a build a Hulk, and then you get these 5 to 7 figures every. And not to say that that's pretty epic. It's rad. I'm just saying there's so many action figure providers that do this, right? So it's like, what can we bring that's different? And what we brought was a uniform scale. We thought it was a better scale because you get more on shelf. It wasn't as clunky. It was kind of more nimble to collect, and the price is excellent. So, and then we can run through more IP. So it's not like we're doing 10 Naruto characters. We have a couple that we're starting with, and so the collector has more choice. They have more variety, and then hopefully that ends up to being able to play and having fun, and role playing, and telling story. So that was the concept behind it.
Well, I think so. So when these were first announced, when we saw, going back to going back to Toy Fair, when we saw this line initially, we saw that that the first two figures we saw were the Cowboy Bebop figures. And initially seeing the two of those, we were like, oh, this is gonna be a really cool Cowboy Bebop line. And then as more information came out, and then you guys had it, we were talking prior to this. You described it as like, think the Super Smash Brothers, but for action figures. My head nearly almost like fell off my shoulders, because it's such a it is such an absolute flip on the way that every other toy line is being created, where it's like, uh, McFarlane Toys just announced, their new, Batman wave, and like people are already in the comment sections. You could see like, oh, is Damian Wayne going to be, short enough to scale with Batman? And it's like, people are getting out rulers to make sure that their figures, look appropriate next to each other on the shelf. And then conversely, you guys have a line where it's like, listen, you know, we know the Elric brothers, you know, there's a height discrepancy there, but they're all 5-inch figures and they're supposed to play in the same world and swap parts, so that's not what this is about.
Totally. We think with toy collectors as the older toy collectors, they create too many rules. There's the whole idea was to suspend rules. That was the whole idea. Like when you're kids, like kids don't sit around and I mean, you can give them a 5-inch Hulk and a 5-inch Spider-Man, and they're pleased as punch, right?
Yep.
They don't care. They don't care. It's more about play and imagination and breaking down those rules. And we thought that that's a much more fun exercise than just spoon feeding. A sort of kind of what everybody else is doing. What everybody's been doing for years. And unfortunately, people are applying too many rules to it. I think it's without rules. I think it's more fun. And as you're saying, it's like, yeah, we know Alphonse Elric is a giant, night beast, and his brother is not. But that's not the point. I wanted Elric to jam with Gene Simmons. You
I
know
think
what I mean? That to me was like, that's cool, but not tower over Gene Simmons, like relate to Gene Simmons. you know?
I like how it's funny because like you basically have Gene Simmons at the center of this toy line where it's or even if you're less of a Kiss guy and more of a Guns N' Roses guy or an AC/DC guy, you have Angus or Slash, right? But it's
Yeah.
like, how cool would it be if Napoleon Dynamite was dancing next to Slash?
Totally. I mean, Angus Young he's 5'4" I mean, next
Yeah.
to Gene, he looks like like how Shaquille O'Neal looks next to Spud Webb. You know what I mean? But that's not what we're going for. We want everybody kind of in the equal playing field. The only we kind of treat gremlins a little bit different because what goes high goes out. You know.
Yeah.
So, but Gremlins is one of these things where we just kind of look onto its own. We have the action models that are 3-inch. If you really want those to blend in the world, you could do that. But for the best action, they just happen to be kind of giant teddy bears and a monster because if they're going to be 5 inches, Gizmo's fat, man.
Yep.
I mean, he's basically a fat teddy bear. So we're treating that one a little bit different just because they're the form factors, they're not humanoid. They're not really human. They're, giant teddy bear and a
Weird.
gremlin,
Yeah.
you know.
Weird monkey teddy bear.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that kind of is its own thing. But for the humans and, things that are really kind of, germane to being a humanoid, we wanted them to kind of be all on the same scale, the 1 in 15, like a true action figures or a true scale assortment, and not really being statements about worlds where all these rules apply. So we think probably 99.9% of people are going to absolutely love that and freak and see how fun that is. And you always will have the 0.1% that are going to be the rules police, and we're just like, oh, you're missing the point. It's not about the rules; it's about breaking the rules.
Absolutely. Now, are outside of action figures with swappable parts, are you considering any vehicles, any kind of play sets, anything to kind of go with them to build this world?
It's hard, play sets are hard, and why they're hard. I get there's a couple collectible companies that have done some play sets that are like an exorbitant amount of money and things like that because the tooling is just so exotic and there's just not enough volume there, right? So, not enough volume, exotic costs. Obviously, it's going to be an expensive one-offs. But what happens to a brand like us who's at retail, like, who's on the shelves of Walmart and Target and Walgreens and some of these places, you got to understand Walmart's not a toy store. Walmart's really a grocery store with a
Yeah.
couple of toy shelves, right? So it's like they don't want big bulky things there. They want, more assortments. That's kind of their philosophy. So for us, it's really hard in our environment to do that because we're asking the store to dedicate a lot of space for it, and with with probably a slower turn and probably you know less 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 revenue per square inch kind of thing. So I think it's really hard to do that at retail right now. If when Toys R Us was around, it was awesome because it was just a giant laboratory and they had huge stuff like, oh, cool, look at that. It's a 30-foot big wheel. Of course. You know, now you look at Walmart and you're like, man, they're lucky you even get a tiny Huffy up on a bike rack.
Yeah.
So it's hard in our environment. We do some D2C business. It's not the core of our business. The core of our business is really kind of at retail, wholesale to retail. So I'm not counting it out. It's if that enthusiasm is there, if that customer is there, and if the retailer can find the space for it, I mean, obviously we'll make it.
So Jonathan, we posted a message on a story up on our Instagram today, and we asked our followers if they had any questions for you and for the loyal subjects, specifically about the best action line. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of those?
No, go for it.
All
I don't
right.
know if I have any answers, but I'll try.
So the first one, I actually got this question twice. Is there's a lot of excitement that there is a character from Big Trouble in Little China,
Mhm.
in Wave 1. Are there plans to include more characters from that film in future waves?
Yeah, so I mean, it works twofold. You guys go buy it. Guess what? The buyer's going to want to put more up there. So yeah, this is a group cooperation thing. Part of it is, hey, here's our licenses, here's the characters we want to build. And then the buyer has a lot of influence on what ends up on shelf. So for me personally, do I want to see the rest of the Storms up there? Do I want to see Lo Pan? Do I want to see Jack Burton? I'd take Egg, dude. I think he's cool.
Yeah.
I'm all down for all of them, man. I think it's cool. So, even the 6 gun shooter, I know he's he's on our Facebook group. He's a cool dude. Gerald, I think Gerald Akamura. He was in the movie. And he converses with us a lot of times. And he wants us to get a figure made of him. So there's only one way to make that happen is that fans go and ravage the pegs, and then the buyer's going to come to us and say how much Big Trouble could we get. But we have Lightning in the assortment, and he's really badass. I mean, he's cool, and we hopefully if that does really well, we'll probably go to Lopan or another Storm most likely, and kind of work our way around it a bit.
Cool.
I mean, I'm on board with that regardless.
Same.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is funny. I went to college with April Hong, James Hong's daughter, Lopan. And she was in a bunch of classes with me, and I used to bug her all the time. It's like, oh yeah, I love it. Your dad's awesome. I love that movie. So there was something going on in school, and he showed up. I don't know if we had like some presentation or something, but he showed up, and apparently April had told her that this guy that's in a class with her and that that she's friends with really loves himself some Lopan. He showed up to school, to college. I went to Cal State Northridge, and he tapped me on the shoulder. He handed me an autographed photo. It says, "You were not put on this earth to get it, Jonathan." I was like, "That is cool, man." I was so stoked.
Amazing.
That rules.
And now he's actually there. He's got so much love in Hollywood. Everybody's lobbying for him to get a star on the Walk of Fame. I think he's going to get it.
That would be well deserved for sure.
Oh yeah, he's like one of the best character actors out there, from Seinfeld, the Seinfeld episode to, I mean, the guy's just fantastic, right? but Lopan sort of cuts the cake for me. That was my favorite.
Yeah, that and plus, like, my brain is going like a million miles an hour thinking of like the cool like figure photography you could do mixing these characters together. So I'm just excited. So yes, then to answer that question, then if you want more, you heard it from Jonathan. If you want more Big Trouble in Little China, and you got to go out and buy Lightning when this line starts to hit. All
Well,
right.
I think people are going to go nuts. I mean, I think people will get it. They're going to go, this is a killer scale, it's a killer price, a ton of features. It's basically Tamashii Nation Light for
Yeah.
$15.99. I mean, this is, and with all the different character, the varieties and choices, it's kind of like a no brainer. I mean, hopefully, we take over everybody's action figure collections. That's what we want. We want the people to build these battle royales of all these different characters from all these different worlds.
So we've kind of touched on a lot of the other questions that we've been asked, but there is one that I think is just kind of more of kind of a general question.
Mhm.
We have a question about the loyal subjects in general. Why does it tend to be very difficult to find the loyal subject products on shelves?
Um, I don't know. I've heard this about our distribution, and people are like, "Oh, your distribution sucks. You can't find anything." It's like, I don't know, man. We shipped 6 million pieces and sold 6 million pieces, so there's stuff out there. You know?
So it's a good problem to have then.
Yeah. It's not like there is a sort of there is sort of this you know like I don't know, mythology that we just the products we get we're not they're just not out there. It's like we're always saying, look, if you want Ghostbusters, go to GameStop and Target. They have them, and surely they do. Now we don't have control once we ship it to distributors or retailers. We obviously don't have control of how we get on shelf. Like if we're at Hasbro and Mattel, you got more control because you got these giant retail teams and merchandising teams, and they have 1,000 foot soldiers out there. They're able to help merchandise the products. Well, brands like us, little brands, we don't have we don't have those sort of resources. So we kind of have to do what everybody else does: is watch as store managers or clerks or people that stock shelves get stuff out from the storerooms, or or from the DCs or whatever, or distributors we ship to, that they get things out. Sometimes things moving in it's like a hockey puck moving in different directions sometimes, and there might be some of our stuff already on there, so there's got some of that has to sell through to get new stuff on there. We only have so much space at retail, so could be a million different reasons. And some stuff we do is more boutique, so it just sells out quicker because we just don't make a lot of it, because the audience might not be there to make a lot of it. So it's like we're not playing any games. We're kind of making to what we can is available for people to purchase, that we'll purchase it. So I would say the collectors are way smarter than we are, think way more granular through strategies than we do. But majority on some of what I get as far as feedback, but the majority of it is, yeah, we're making product. We make it what we feel is an appropriate amount of product. We get it to the distributors, we get to the retailers. At that point, it's kind of in their hands. We wish we had more influence at that point, but if they get it up, maybe it sells out. Maybe it's collectors are. I know that collectors are territorial for the loyal subjects, where they stake out certain places, so they might sweep the shelves before other people do. But yeah, I mean, there is good stuff out there. It's kind of everywhere. I know there's people are asking, where's Hot Wheels? Well, Hot Wheels is at Target and was at Target for a while. I think the one that there has been a sort of limited distribution through is Agretsuko. That was probably the most elaborate, coolest series we've ever made. It has there's so many characters in the series. It's like head spinning, and that's I think you get that on Amazon through Bandai America. Like you could grab it. It's there. But if it's just about hunting at retail, who knows? Maybe we're popular. Maybe the products are just not there. Yeah. but we ship them. You know, we order them from the supplier and we make them. And we ship them. So you know, they got to be somewhere. They're not with us anymore. No, it was like the best action was Walmart. Okay, so how's this go? Walmart goes 9:15, 9:15. That's the set date. That's the set date. You know, and so we feel a responsibility to move it because you know we want it to be a big line and we want to marshal the people that we know that will go out there and support it. So what happens? 9:15 shows up. There's no best action on the shelf. So people are like, "Well, where is it?" We're like, "Well, we shipped it." You know, we're like, you know, part of me showing up to 2,500 stores and actually grabbing it from the warehouse and putting it on shelf myself, I don't know what else to tell you. But we have been sort of, you know, really close in talks with the group, the retail marketing group that is curating that space at Walmart. And they say it's on shelves, you know, it's stuff's on shelves right now and it just, Walmart's a beast. It just takes them a second.
So at Walmart, is this line going to be in the primary toy aisle, or is it going to be more in like the electronics section, like the previous Loyal Subjects product?
Exactly. So electronics, you know, the evolution of that, I think electronics is sort of like, you know, the Radio Shack fries thing where there's not a lot of electronics out anymore, right? It's like you got a laptop, you got an iPhone, you got an iPad. That's your electronics.
Yeah.
So so a lot of these stores went scrambling about, you know, how to fill those spaces. And, you know, pop culture has really sort of exploded. So pop culture merchandise, you know, I mean, you could see it by the amount of people that the increase in patronage at, you know, pre-COVID, obviously, at Disneyland and some of these theme parks. And obviously, you know, you're guaranteed to get what, at least 4 Marvel movies a year, 3 or 4. So you could see where pop culture was heading in general, and there was a lot of merchandising solutions in and around these sort of tentpole, you know, Marvel movies or Disney, you know, IP. And so, you know, selling stuff that no longer sells because everything lives in the cloud and people have these sort of self-sustained, you know, technological sort of outfits in their homes and you know there's not as much of these sort of oblong electronic devices and assortments and sort of varieties to buy anymore. So they did what they did. It's like, okay, well, we got to transfer electronics. It's funny that people know that it's an electronics section, but it is. And so the electronics section is becoming the entertainment section, essentially. And so that's just a long explanation of why it's in electronics, because electronics is flying by, and entertainment is dominating pop culture. And then you're also getting the same thing in music. So like the Gene and Angus and Slash, that's really showing up in music.
Okay.
You know, so we're like, you know, it's unfortunate. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of music. You know, I played it all my life and love, you know, Studer recording boards and 2-inch tape and live bands and all that stuff and records and but it's gone. You know, nobody collects records anymore and a lot of that stuff's gone. I know that there is some resurgence of vinyl, you know. So they do have like a little splash of that and some of these kind of cool little record players, you know, that you see popping up here and there. But they're also looking for companies like Lowell Subjects to create solutions, pop culture solutions for music fans. You know, action figures being one of it, and I'm sure there's going to be some pins and you know coffee cups and cool memorabilia that music fans like. It's just not going to be CDs or you know actual physical music anymore.
So now, one of the things that you mentioned was, you know, a lot of the limited stuff. And this is kind of a question that I've always had. Club 28 is kind of the big limited thing for the action vinyls. What goes into deciding what's going to be a Club 28 action vinyl? Like I know for the WWE ones, there was the ref. what kind of makes it like, well, yeah, let's have it be the ref?
Just random, like someone throw out, would a ref be cool? And I was like, yeah, that would actually be cool. That's it. I mean, that is the thought process. I know, one of, I would say the more famous ones is this green He-Man one we did called Slime Pit He-Man. And, apparently it sells for like thousands of dollars, but it's, honestly, it was just kind of looking through the lore and saying, what's a bit, we were doing so many different colorways because back then we were giving retailers their own colorways. Thank God we're not doing that anymore. We're making like 66 SKUs. We're basically, blowing our wad on one wave. It was unsustainable. It's ridiculous. But I think it's what helped establish the brand, actually, of like going to Toys R Us and picking up Toys R Us He-Man, then Target He-Man, then, Hot Topic He-Man, then Walmart He-Man. So I think it did help us, but as far as production complexities, it's just absolutely mind-numbing, bending, managing six SKUs. Think about a normal action figure company, what do they manage? 7 SKUs tops? So
If that.
totally. So we were just going way out there, man. Part of it was, kind of honoring the collectability and kind of giving chase. But I mean, we were running ourselves ragged, really exhausting a lot of resources, making it so special and customized. So when we're getting down to, some of the nitty gritty on this thing that we invented called Club 28, which has its own story of how it even came about. We were just looking, all right, we've done all the He-Mans. What's available? And it was just like, oh, what about the green slime pit one? We're like, okay, cool. Club 28. Let's do it.
So
That is about as far as that goes. And some of it is just like what has reduced complexity in deco? Is there, can we cut it off from an existing tool? Because asking a factory that's set up to produce 1 million units of something to go, oh, by the way, will you make 28 of this? It's like going to a very fancy restaurant, telling the chef, can you get a crumb of the bread, not leave a tip, walk out, and thanks for your nice bread. It's an insane proposition. It'd be like going to printing, a big card printing store and go, "Can I get 8 business cards?"
yeah.
What are they gonna? They're gonna look at you, like you got a hole in your head. So we do these things that kind of buck traditional norms for manufacturing, and it probably piss off our suppliers quite a bit, actually. So in the case of He-Man, Slime Pit He-Man, he was just green. He was one shot. You do it in the sample room and be done with it. It's like if it's really complex, it's we're giving the factory extra bottles of liquor for Chinese New Year. Thank you for doing these crazy things for us, and thank you for still being our partners, although we ask you to do crazy things.
Yeah, that's. I mean, but those little touches are what makes a company feel more transparent, more accessible. Like those little special touches throughout are awesome. Like it really is a nice touch.
Well, we certainly try to do our best, and they are nearly impossible tasks to pull off, but I think we've pulled a few of them off. It's, as I'm sure you guys are action figure enthusiasts, I'm pretty sure you guys would know that.
Yes.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
not easy out to make 20 or something.
Well, Jonathan, listen, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for coming on and talking about the loyal subjects.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
Please
you,
please
guys.
plug where. So best action, the first wave should be out now, and
It's
the second wave has been announced, right?
Yeah, from what I know, it's in stores and it's hitting stores right now. Definitely go out this week and check it. There's a lot of stores that should have it by then. Yeah, so we have, an anime selection, which is being followed up by entertainment selection. And so those SKUs are going to start sliding in on 10/15. about 2.5 weeks. And then on music is also hitting 10/15. That is in select Walmart stores. It's not as wide as what we're doing right now. We're in 2,500 stores with the Best Action lines for anime and entertainment. We're in select stores for the music stuff, but it does look like it's going to go wide if it does really gangbusters. So we have, if it does go wide, then it'll be mostly in your neighborhood Walmart. And then Hot Topic should have Best Action and assortment about 10/15. Looks like Target's is getting into the game a little bit. That'll be in 2021. And then we are going to put some Best Action on our website in next 2 to 3 weeks. And that's theloyalsubjects.com. Follow us on Instagram. We're The Loyal Subjects. Follow us on Facebook. We're The Loyal Subjects Co. on Facebook. And we're bringing a lot of really cool stuff, and kind of surprising. We're having this growth spurt during COVID, which is, trust me, I have the worst business instincts. I started the company, in the 2008, Great Recession, and grew it, and maybe I got good business instincts, and then here we are at COVID, and we're scaling this company out to be a beast. So, definitely go and support, and we'll keep on making cool stuff.
Well, congratulations on all the growth. This product line is awesome. We can't wait.
It's really cool. I'm
cannot
excited.
wait to get our hands on it.
Oh, dudes, thanks. I appreciate it. There's a lot of love and care that went into this. And I know the creative teams worked extraordinarily hard. I might just be the voice piece of the Loyal Subjects, but I have an incredible creative team. Their senior designers, absolutely a rock star, lead sculptors, a rock star. And then the heroes of the day are the TLS China team, who just, awe-inspiring, the amount of work and dedication and focus. It's absolutely awe-inspiring. So I might get too much credit for this because it truly is a giant team effort.
Well, get out there and buy some figures, guys.
For sure.
Definitely do that. Yeah.
Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azzari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer, Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.